So now that we've moved the File Explorer from one place to another, let's have a look at what it actually is and how do we actually generate new routes in the full stack in the new setup. So first of all, let's have a look at how the full stack route has been generated, just to give you guys a very simple idea about what a component is and how simple it actually is. Components, if I should explain it in my way, would be it's what replaces directives in the old Angular setup. So components is just a new way to write smaller bits of our actual front-end code. So instead of writing the entire application in one big chunk, then we can cut it down to saying, I only want to work on a file, how to display a file, how to display a folder, how to display a file explorer, right? So I can cut everything down into small pieces. And actually right now your nav bar up here and your footer down here is actually also components. And actually the same for this very specific route. The controller is also actually using a component. I'm going to show you that first. So let's go into the code and just have a very brief walkthrough of how to make a component, right? So this is actually how simple it is. So here they've made a function called file component. So that's just going to be the component for the file. And right now we're using a scope. I don't want to do that anymore. So let me just remove it, and let me even remove the scope from in here because it's not necessary in my setup. It's a very basic one, this one. But you can see that we've actually said on the Angular module called Course Planner, that's my module, that's my application, I want to add a component called file. That just means that now I have a new tag available inside my HTML where you can say bigger than, smaller than, file. So it's a new tag like you would do with a body tag or a H3 tag or whatever you wanted to do. I have a new tag now available in the Angular setup called file. It's that simple. I'll show you this in a second. Another thing I have to specify when I create a new component is where do I actually get the code? Where is the HTML file that is bound together? I could actually, you can see this in the example, so I won't spend too much time here, but I could actually write actual HTML directly in here, like an H3 right here saying woof, and then end it here. I could do that directly in here, but instead we're adding a URL here, like this. So I'm pointing, if you wrote only template, you could do what I just showed you, but I'm just pointing at an actual HTML file under app file HTML. So it's this guy right here. The other thing I have to specify is actually some controller, some component that I'm using. And that's the guy that I have right here. So I'm pointing at the file component up here that I want to do stuff in. So in here I could start working with this component. We'll get into more details about this in the next couple of lessons. But this is just how simple it is to make a new component. It doesn't take any more than this. I'll show you more advanced versions, but this is the first way to learn it. What this means when I've made this very, very basic component is that in the file HTML, I can actually start writing, in the file.js, I can actually just add a template called file, right? So this is now just a tag, just the HTML tag. So if I go now to the URL saying /file, I know that I'm looking for a component called file. And where's that component? Well, that's in here. File. And that component uses the file HTML and the controller file component right here. Okay, so that is how I bind stuff together now using the component setup instead of the old setup where we made, I can show you one of them, in the old controllers where we kind of made a controller instead, and that took care of everything for us. And then we still bound them together here, but it's more pointing directly to a user controller and pointing to a specific HTML page here. So we kind of just moved the logic into smaller modules, if that makes sense for you. So let me try and show you what we're going to do in the next couple of lessons, because I want the File Explorer to be one big component. So this is the main component called File Explorer, and that was the one I moved in the first lesson. The next thing I want to do is cut this down so that I'm going to have a file component, a folder component. That's going to be these guys. They're going to be folder components. And then I want an actual file component, and that's going to be these guys. So I'm going to split it up into so small bits that you can actually start reusing those components other places. But I can also start making them intelligent. So this guy only knows about how to handle a file. This guy knows how to handle a folder, and this guy knows how to handle both files and folders and how to lay them out. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break it down, one big application, into smaller bits, so they're more reusable, easier to read, and more component built than what we had in the previous lessons. See you in the next lessons, where we're going to have a look at how the File Explorer is actually built.